thank you for all your presentations. That was really insightful for me. And I want to pick up on some of the things that has been discussed. One of the points that's been picked up by one of our attendees, who talked about recruitment and also the fact that often in this profession, a lot of the parents, especially those with minority background, tend to say this is not a good profession, become a doctor, become an accountant, much more higher paying professions as such. But I kind of want to turn the table a little bit because I hear this argument a lot in the sense that it sounds like it's on the immigrant fault that they're not choosing the profession as journalists. I want to kind of give you a bit of my thoughts on it and say that perhaps it's the whole entire industry itself that needs to make it much more attractive. And I think internally we talked about it. I used the word making it sexy as a profession, as such. And I think it goes for all type of industries. It reminds me of when I was young back in the UK, where they wanted to have more younger people voting. And that was a movement, a campaign to get them more involved in politics. So I feel like this is the same thing when it comes into journalism, is that we need to make the industry more attractive. We need to get people into work. And so I want to just throw the ball at all of you to see what do you think about what I just said. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? How can we move forward with this recruitment process, making sure that journalists, students with minority background get actually hired by editors?
Well, I totally agree with you, Ka Man. And I think it's the editor's fault. So what I suggested in my speech was also to educate the editors and on what you can do. And I'm always telling my students to be very original when it comes to developing sources, developing network, because there's so many things not covered good enough. So when you meet the editors, when you're in a job interview, sell your sources. If you know the difference between the two big Muslim Islamic organizations in Norway, for example, you know so much more than an average editor in a national newspaper, and that counts. That's important to know, and you can easily make a list of selling points and arguments from that. And if you know the Asian environment, it's unique, and also if you can highlight some of the challenges and positive stories, it's extremely valuable, and I think the editors will listen. And for me as a lecturer, it's very, very difficult because I'm recruiting students who are not getting any jobs. So so I can have a full program, and we can have so many projects, but we need to see, but they need to see that they can have jobs at the end. In the end.
How about Anthony? You had raised your hand. So what are your thoughts around this?
We have the same issue in the tech sector where we've kind of. It's really maddening because I think a lot of companies think all they have to do is take down the signs, right? The "you're not allowed" signs, and then that suddenly magically your companies will become diverse. But it takes an active role to bring in groups that have been systematically disadvantaged over years and years and years and years. So it's no surprise to me when a tech firm, and I've gotten even this from Innovation Norway, that they say things like, "Oh, we want women to come to our events," and then they do nothing to actually reach out to mentor, to accommodate, to support, and to find ways of connecting with those communities. And so it takes more than just saying we want. It takes a lot of doing.
Melanie? You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I was struggling with my computer to unmute. I completely agree with what the two panelists before me have said, and also you as well, is it does kind of sound like it's putting the onus upon the immigrant families. And, you know, how about we work on focusing on the system and changing the power structure. And so they're not all immigrant, that might be some cases, there are some immigrant families where that is the case, but there are also those cases where it's not. But we really need to focus on the power structure and changing the way that we recruit, changing the way that we pull people in. I think mentor programs are a brilliant idea. And Jan Martin, I'm really looking forward to hearing what kind of reaction that you get. I'll say I got pulled into Associated Press. I got started in Associated Press through a minority internship program. And it was very innovative at the time. And there's like a crew of us that have, you know, we've been in the business for a long time, and they're leaders. They've won Pulitzer Prizes. They're some of the best journalists in the world. And because the door was opened, and not only was the door open, but I was supported in the way that I needed to be supported, and I was elevated, and I was, you know, groomed, and I had to do all the work. I had to do all the work. I earned every single win that I had, and we all did. So it's just a matter of changing the system to make it more equitable, like we spoke about before, leveling the playing field. And if my parents did not want me to be a journalist because of it's not a sexy profession, well, that's on me. No, that's not even on me. That's my situation. And we really need to focus on systemic changes and systemic improvement. That's it.
I totally agree. Do you have some comment to this, Xueqi?
I think it's sad, to be honest.
Yeah. So for me, it's you know, I became a journalist here in Norway, so I didn't actually have the kind of formal education, say, back in the UK. And I've been seeing a lot of, and here in the audience, we have a lot of signups from students who say that they're not getting enough of this type of space to talk about these issues in their own university and in their programs. So, you know, we have to hear to academics, you know, whether even the university program in journalism is doing enough. And I'm saying this because for me, my path to become a journalist was quite different. I didn't get the formal education. I knew that it would take me a long time, you know, to learn the Norwegian language and get in, and then do a degree, and then, you know, go into practice in journalism over here. In fact, what I did was actually, I took some courses, I read a lot about a code of ethics in journalism, and then paved my own projects. I actually wrote my own articles, and thankfully I had a mentor like Melanie to help me look into my articles and made me a better journalist that I am today. So, so I guess what I'm saying is, do we actually need a degree to become a journalist, I guess? Perhaps it's quite a provocative comment and also a question to the panel, you know. How did you guys start it? What challenges do you have? So I guess this is for Melanie and Xueqi, you know, how did you guys started your journalism career path? Melanie? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, new computer. So yeah, I mean, I began being a journalist at 16 years old, working for my city newspaper. There was a man by the name of Keener Tippin, an African-American man, and knew that he started a program for high school students who like to write, and opened the door for us to work for the youth page. And so that was my high school job, and that's how it began. And so since I was 16, I knew I wanted to be a journalist. And it makes it been very easy to, it was easy to pick the school, pick the classes, and because that was a life passion. So I think having those programs are good to open the doors. But you have to show up, and you have to show up and show out, as we say. So is journalism a profession, or is it, do you need proper schooling? You know, that question has been around literally since the beginning of journalism. And because there's more than one way to achieve it. Yeah, I don't think there's one right answer. Some people get there from solely life experience, and that's fine and just as valid as people who go to school and get a 4-year degree and have the privilege of doing that. And so there's really no one way. I just think staying committed to authentic storytelling.
Xueqi?
I think in Norway, experience is the most important factor for getting a job within any newsroom. And I actually feel a little bit betrayed by that, because I went from high school directly to university to have my degree in journalism. And I thought I was so prepared for just, getting a job and start working. But I was met with a lot of, oh, you don't have writing experience, you don't have, experience over time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just, I felt sometimes, even when we were talking during lunch, people are actually, it's very common to say that, oh, we have a degree in arbeidsledighet, which is like unemployment, or that journalism degree is in reality not that important at all for getting a job in Norway. And as a person that actually spent 3 years getting this degree, I mean, you get kind of, it's awkward, but I definitely think that having the degree I have made me a way better journalist, because for me, getting a job in the local newspaper wasn't something I even considered, because I never thought I would get a job. I didn't have parents that told me how local news worked, or knew anything about local news, or getting experiences. You have a natural, mixed feelings about news and being a journalist. And at the end, I'm happy I had a degree. But as an immigrant coming to Norway, don't be afraid of trying just because you don't have a proper education. You can do it. And I think most Norwegian journalists as well don't really have, it's the experience that counts, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because I think I discussed this with you a little bit because, or maybe it was someone else in the network, but it was about the union. So I've been wanting to join a union, and I found it quite hard because I'm wearing many hats. I'm part journalist, part communication strategist somewhere else in another company, and I realized there's quite a big divide here in Norway in the sense that you need to, if you're a journalist, you're a journalist, but if you're doing corporate communication, you're corporate communication, and you can't really join the union in such ways. And I find it really hard because I have my legs on both sides. So I feel like, in a sense, when it comes to recruitment, but also on the other end, like the hiring, is that if you have someone who's, partly being a journalist and also going into this corporate communication, that maybe they should be allowed, because I saw that with the Norwegian Union of Journalists, is that you need to be a journalist for like 35% of the time. And I found that was quite strange for me, because how am I going to calculate? Because I freelance, which means I take on projects as a time, so it's hard for me to calculate in that year. So I was wondering whether you guys had any, I know like Melanie, you work for as a communication person in a different corporate company, but I was thinking at Jon Martin and Xueqi, both of you as journalists, have you ever navigated, utilizing your skills in journalism somewhere else? So, Jon Martin? You're on mute.
I started in my local newspaper when I was for 13 years old, and I was dragged off the street then headhunted to the local radio station when I was 14. And the reason why was that I could write interesting stories, and I could find voices that needed to be heard. And I found many of them among my fellow pupils, classmates. And that made my career throughout my life so far. And I switched, and I didn't have a journalism degree before my master's 15 years ago in international journalism, and that helped me to. Norway was in a media crisis then, so I had to join the Red Cross to see the world, and that made me think about our journalism programs in Norway, because I can, as far as I know, and at least at Christiania University College, Høgskolen Christiania, a bigger slide of the bachelor program is now about social studies. It's about understanding the world, understanding bureaucracy, understanding politics. And I think that's extremely valuable in addition to the ethic of journalism. I also teach journalism to PR students, communication students, and the difference and the awakening they have when they learn about how we source, the ethics, how we write properly. If you know this handcraft, you can get a job.
Melanie, you had something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think as someone who's done how technology has democratized information sharing. And so, you know, you can have your own blog post, you can have your own blog, you can create your own content, and you're creating your portfolio. Like the barriers of speaking to the world, are so much lower. You know, it's all in, like, I feel like I'm doing a telephone commercial, but it's right here. It's in your back pocket. Your newsroom is right here. And I think that's beautiful. So I do think that you do have to kind of align yourself with some mentors to help you with the coaching. It's also very reputable sources online that are just a Google away. And because I think there is something with the ethics that, in the way that the universal, somewhat universal truths of and tenets of journalism, that you want to just make sure what goes involved in the sourcing and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's probably, not to speak for the union at all, not even remotely, but I have heard that concern in other journalism unions, that there is a certain threshold and a level, because they don't want someone who has no journalism experience or respect for the ethics. You know, Ka Man, when you started off, you went deep diving into the ethics and how to do it right and constructive journalism, and you know, you showed such tenacity and hunger for that. And I think not knowing if other people are going to do the same, I think that could possibly be why there's some hesitancy around that. But that's just what I've seen from some organizations in the US. Obviously, I don't know about the one here.
Xueqi, you raised your hand, so yeah.
You talked a little bit about how Norwegian journalists or newsrooms are very aware of, you know, are you a journalist or are you a social, PR manager or PR worker? And I think in Norway, it is, as you say, very, clear roles. Either you're a journalist or either you're working with the journalist or you're against them in some way. And And I kind of have respect that, because we don't want to switch roles all the time and have a lot of hats on. And so there are even discussions, either you can be a sports fan if you are a sports journalist, or can you say you are a Liverpool fan if you're a football journalist. And another thing I want to add to getting a job as a journalist, or working as a journalist in Norway, or if you're new, or if you're a new beginner, that in Norway there's also, I feel, I have no proof actually. Well, I do have I've heard that there's also a side of nepotism in getting a job. If you have a father or mother that works in NRK, it's easier for you to get in. And if you know someone, uncle or auntie that is working in the newspapers, it's very much easier for you to get a foot inside. And I just want to add that, because it's not like, it's not fair in any way, always. And that is also a dark side of getting employed as well. Yeah.
Jon Watton, you had something to say. Oh, you're on mute.
I want to stress that also the one advantage of doing an education is also that we are cooperating very, very well with the newspapers, and we let our students work with them for 2 months during the second year, and the majority of them will continue to work for them and get double training. And I also want to support Melanie's statement about the importance of multimedia, because we are in a situation now where I am supervising bachelor thesis during the pandemic, and one way of creating a network is then to zoom in on, for example, refugee women in Lebanon. So I'm actually having students interviewing refugee women in the Bekaa Valley on Zoom, facilitated by humanitarian organizations. And that's the opportunities that everyone can take. And because it's about sources. I cannot stress this enough. It's about sources and network when you're here, or to build it uniquely internationally.
Yeah, I think you and Melanie has picked up on technology as being pivotal for journalists, but also for even citizens themselves. So that moves me on to Anthony, because Anthony, you've been working in technology, for decades. I'm presuming for now, for a long time. What are your views on because you're creating content yourself? Because I hear this a lot as well, that because of technology disrupting the news and journalism industry in general, it means that people need to kind of, the costs are higher, it's hard to hire, minorities and so forth. What is your view around, because I knew you do frugal innovation, so I was thinking that maybe you can bring in those elements of your views on how journalism and the news industry themselves view technology, and how can technology as a tool aid storytelling.
Sure. So I networked my high school at 17 years old. So it's been greater part of 20 years I've been in the tech industry. But I think merging kind of innovation as not just a buzzword, but an actual process that we use to harness creative thinking, critical thinking skills, and approach some of what we just accept as conventional wisdom, no matter the industry, but especially an industry as old as journalism, where we're kind of questioning our default assumptions. When we go into creating a new piece of technology, are we just doing what everyone else is doing, or are we rethinking this process in a really significant way, so that, again, we're breaking with the past, we're breaking with tradition in a certain way, but we're doing it in order to start with a cleaner slate. So we're not tethered to these more these basic assumptions around our practice. And I see this across many, many different industries, that we can't move forward because we're so tethered to the way we've always done things. And the problem with the way that we always done things is it's created a lot of issues. And so we have to radically rethink, and the stuff that Jan Martin is doing, the stuff that Melanie's doing, the stuff that Oslo Desk is doing is absolutely shifting the balance of power in a very positive direction. So when we're talking about adopting new technologies, I think we really have to approach it from a participatory angle, so bringing diverse groups into the design and development of those technologies, but then also shift our thinking so we're not just reproducing the way things have always been.
And I think it's also very important in the sense that when we're creating technology, especially, I'm hearing a lot of news about AI technology coming into the journalism industry, and how AI is, if you have developers who are just, white folks and you're going to spin out quite biased results out of that. So it's also quite important to have a diversity in the workforce in order to build that technology. Melanie, you have your hands up.
I'm so sorry. Not really. I should not apologize. But I just finished working on this really writing a piece about a really cool project regarding AI and diversity. And I just personally am so intrigued by this because, these machine learning models, and if I geek out too much, pull me back in. These machine learning models, these machines are learning as they go along, and what they are learning and the solutions that they're finding, that what is it they say, the model, it's not that the model itself is biased, it's that they're learning from us, they're learning from our behaviors. And so there is a big push when it comes to technology and emerging technologies, and getting more people from diverse perspectives in there, so that we can be sure that these models are more representative of the way the world actually is, instead of the construct and makeup of the people who are creating the solutions. That's it. I can go on, but
right.
I gotta...
Anthony, did you want to say something?
Yes, absolutely, because you said the magic word AI, and I just want to echo what Melanie said and say that all AI has done in a lot of industries is automate and expedite bias and power and privilege. So we really need to acknowledge that, especially in journalism, that if we're adopting AI systems in any of our practices, that the existing biases that are already present in society are just going to get amplified unless we completely rethink the way we've created AI. What Melanie said about the algorithm itself not being biased is, there's a partial truth there. The mathematics behind it, sure, are not biased, but whomever is designing the mathematics is still going to imbue their own personal biases. So how we weight certain things in a mathematical model can seriously impact the output side of things. And of course, we have a huge data bias. There's huge gaps in data. The perfect example is voice recognition. So women's voices are less likely to be accurately recognized than men's voices, because the data set that we have that's available has preponderance of male voices in it. So we have to, again, kind of rethink the whole system, the inputs, the processing, and the outputs.
Great. Did you want to say something, Jan Martin? I saw you raised your hand, so.
Yeah, we should also mention when we're talking about artificial intelligence, that artificial intelligence also could create a better space for investigative journalism, because we can do some routine work automatically. So, and that will be a beautiful thing to explore further.
Right. As I want to also open up the panel also to the audience as well, I want to do one thing. So this is inspired by Richard Liu, who's a CNN reporter, and he does this in this panel discussion, which is called the lightning round. So basically, I would say something, and then you would use one word to describe it. So if I say define journalism and media, you would come up with one word to describe that. So let's see how this one goes. So if I say diversity and inclusion in media. You're on mute.
Oh, no, only one word.
Yeah, think of one word to describe, to try.
I have two.
Okay, we'll go for two. Let's go for that.
Saving lives, improving the world. That's three.
Anthony.
I'll just say accessibility.
Melanie.
Needs equity.
Xueqi.
More?
The next one is fake news.
Facebook.
Melanie.
I'm trying to find the word for it. Media literacy.
Anthony.
We were just talking about it, so I'll say again, AI.
Manipulation.
Immigrant story.
More.
Lack.
Powerful.
More.
Anna Solberg.
Sunglasses for some reason. The picture of her when she broke the law.
Who's that?
The Norwegian Prime Minister. If you don't know.
That was also my response.
Yeah. I don't have one word, but I would say I wouldn't use that expression.
I think powerful. Yeah.
Keeping the spotlight on gender and racial representation in media.
Essential.
Crucial.
Necessary.
Yes. I don't know.
Great. Okay, then we have a few questions, it seems like, from the audience. So we have one, let's see if I can see. There's one from Lynn. If you could turn on your mic and your camera and ask your question.
Hi guys. So my question was, what advice does the panel have on networking, and what sort of networks are newsrooms interested in when applying for a job? And I've gotten a couple of answers and they've been really good. Thank you.
I might add to what Melanie said also, that when it comes to sport and culture, for example, again, think about news journalism in sports, not just report what's happening. So find the stories. For example, right now I'm helping out doing a story about LGBT, the lack of LGBT in football, for example. So and actually take the sport actors seriously in confront and set up and explore conflict lines, inequality, and so on and so on. So it, again, try to develop also sources and network that interests you. So whether it's art, we have a lack of news journalism in arts and culture. We need more coverage than going to a gallery or cover a concert, and that's a desperate need for it. And again, minority sources in everywhere.
I remember, especially for me, when I started out becoming a journalist, I tend to go to a lot of events and conferences. I kind of embed myself in there, and also got to talk to the audience and all the attendees of, why did you attend here? What you're interested in learning, and I kind of grew my network through that. So that could be something to look into. Do you have any, the rest of the speakers, did you, from the panel, does anyone want to shoot in?
I would say I'm a huge believer in mentors, and find your mentor, pretend it's a person who's a source. Like I used to find someone who I wanted I liked their career. Like I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And LinkedIn is like, it's so much easier now. Rock and martyr. And so you can just go to LinkedIn and see what, you can see their career path, and you don't have to emulate them, but it kind of lets you know, okay, this is how they got their start. You can reach out to them. Hey, this is what I'm looking to do. And just take that first step. You're never going to know until you ask. Don't tell yourself no, let the other person tell you no. And if they tell you no, that's great, because you can move on to the next one. You'll find your mentor. You'll find your mentor, and just do that continually. And the people who are supposed to be there and the people who will help you, they're going to go ahead and they'll gravitate, they'll show up.
That's so true, because I can reveal it. I'm spending so much of my spare time mentoring former students. Calling me and saying, John, do you know any organizations in Venezuela, blah blah blah, or do you know sources, or can you help me out with this project I'm doing on Syria? Of course I can.
Anthony, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
so I mean, I've come from a very privileged background, so I've always had people in positions of power who are interested in mentoring me, but I've taken a opposite approach to kind of the way I've worked in my networking circles, in that I've really looked for reverse mentors. So I've looked for people whose careers needed a boost in some way, shape, or form, who were underrepresented in my field. And I mentored them, and in exchange, it was great because they kind of mentored me and helped me avoid a lot of the pitfalls of being a straight white man in my industry. And so this might sound again like a privileged perspective, but it empowered me to kind of pursue my career in a better way, and at the same time enabling people who are underrepresented to pursue their own careers. And so I got out of my echo chamber of the straight white men in tech kind of work, which was liberating. I could not imagine another way of doing a career.
Great. So that comes to wrapping up to this first panel discussion, as we have this next theme coming up. We're already running over time, so apologies to all the other speakers in the second theme. We are running a little bit of time, but again, thank you so much to all you speakers and panelists for today for the first theme. Hopefully we can do this again. Yeah.